Hello, my fellow Americans. I hope you guys are okay and warm and safe. Today, I will be talking about my worst films of 2024. Instead of a top 10, I'm going to go for the lucky number 11, top worst films of 2024. So before I do that, please check out my dishonorable mentions video that I dropped a couple weeks ago. That will give you more of an insight of some of the bad films that I saw this year. And then once you watch that, come to this video and check out a lot of the films that I saw this year that were really, really bad. Stinkers, doo-doo, straight ass. So yeah, let's get into these worst films of 2024. So starting at number 11, I have Uglies. Let's just say this. When I was younger, my queer self would have been all over this film, especially back in the 2010s, where I was like really fully immersed with the YA dystopian era. But now I've completely grown up, and honestly, you should too. Uglies feels like a film trapped in the early 2010s. Joey King stars as an ugly who dreams of becoming a pretty, but is forced to confront the consequences of her actions. And this premise could have worked, back then, but now it pales in comparison to better films that deal with body positivity. And that film this year was called The Substance. Unlike The Substance, which nailed its message, Ugly stumbles by casting conventionally beautiful actors as the so-called uglies, and this completely undermines the film's attempt to explore what truly is to be an ugly. And honestly, I'd rather see, the good Mr. Beetlejuice himself as the CEO of Uglies.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
I think that would totally make goddamn sense compared to this film. And coming at number 10, I have the Megamind sequel, Megamind 2, Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate. Now, listen up here. Animation is cinema. It can resonate with both audiences alike, adults and children. However, animation often gets gatekept by overly passionate fans. Personally, I'm a big fan of the original Megamind. It's a very clever and entertaining animated film that works for all audiences across several generations. But did we really need a sequel to Megamind? Especially over a decade later? This is where Peacock enters the chat. And they basically decided to take a big swing, and yeah, they completely missed. Life guarantees us three things: death, taxes, and the notion and inevitability of straight-to-streaming Peacock originals. Or should I say Peacock. They didn't even bring back Will Ferrell to voice the main character Megamind, so let's just be real, he would have done it in a heartbeat because he just loves money. And instead of, hiring big name actors to voice Megamind and other characters that we know and love, we're just left with a very cheap and unfinished film that you can probably tell from the clips that I will be showing you. But yeah, this feels very dishonest to the original film's charm and quality. So coming at number 9, I have Vitersmith. So I'm just gonna keep it real with you guys, or the Chiefs out here. I just scrolled around Letterboxd to find the worst rated film on the site this year, and I just landed upon this film. Vitersmith is pure trope central. Nika loses her parents in a cheesy CGI car crash and ends up in an abusive orphanage. Eventually she's adopted by a wholesome white family, only for her new life to be disrupted by Regal, her emo and ridiculously horny colleague. Regal, of course, spends his nights brooding and playing piano at ungodly hours, thoroughly wrecking the sanctity of the nuclear family. And when I say the Vitersmith is trope central, I truly mean it. We've gotten two teenagers who instantly hate each other for no reason at all. Despite Regal having a vastly different upbringing from Nika, their orphanage backstory involves everyone being brainwashed by a cartoonishly evil headmistress. The film is basically Twilight Core, just minus the vampires, complete with very terrible communication skills and petty drama, and just people holding grudges over almost nothing. Once Nika leaves the orphanage, all things turn into a very laughable, hilarious, unintentionally funny experience, and it's all coming from bad blood. And yes, there's even a cringy and very hilarious moment near the end that involves everybody clapping. Naturally, there's also the stereotypical ripped evil white twink who gets away with everything because he's hot. Regal is essentially Christian Grey if he wasn't really attractive, but he kind of is though, so I mean that's just me. But basically, he'd be locked up faster than you could say Red Flag. The vibes are basically like 365 Days, but somewhat a little bit worse, or maybe just kind of like Dear Evan Hansen, but it's not a musical. You can probably tell from like the clips, but it's kind of like the same Crimes Against Humanity version of Dear Evan Hansen, but it's Italian, and this does not feel good for Italians. This is Italian discrimination to its core. So coming at number 8, I have The Pool Man. Now, in 2023, I had the opportunity to attend the Toronto International Film Festival, and it was a really enjoyable experience that I'm eager to repeat, every time I have the monetary gains to do it. But prior to finalizing my film schedule back in 2023, I considered including Pool Man, but due to the time constraints, I chose something else. And to my astonishment, upon its premiere, the film received one of the worst receptions at the festival around that time. And this really piqued my curiosity, prompting me to engage with some people who attended the festival and who have seen the film. And basically everyone who I've polled expressed their disappointment, labeling it as one of the worst picks at the festival. Now, months later, Vertical Entertainment acquired this film, and they're basically known for the tendency to pick subpar independent features. Some have likened this film to another film that came out in 2023 called Fool's Paradise, and that basically kind of breeds a little bit of the similarities of this film. Now, let's just say this. Pine makes his directorial debut with a film that heavily draws from the stoner mystery comedies of, the past, like Chinatown, The Beach Bum, Under the Silver Lake, Inherent Vice. Those films that typically feature a protagonist that's basically embroiled in mystery and is obscured through surreal elements, often including, a sense of paranoia and no meaningful resolution near the end of a film or the film. Unlike those films that I mentioned, this basically possesses a lack of style and a lack of direction and a lack of just quality in general. And you just have a meandering main character, Darren, played by Pine, who is just running around doing the most stonery things without any kind of background or just feeling. And it's basically, the typical, dude, I'm smoking weed. I love weed, man. Like, it's so cool. Like, I love weed. I'm smoking it every day. Like, I'm, hanging out with, people that I know, and I'm smoking weed.
Oh, that's some good weed. That's some good weed, bro. Dude, this is some good weed. Dude, this weed is so good. I'm smoking weed. I'm smoking weed.
And that's basically it. Now, I will say this. It could be, a misunderstood stoner comedy that might be reconsidered for, criticism later down the line. But that film that had that same kind of feeling was Under the Silver Lake. And at least that offered commentary on paranoia and had a very stylish presentation with also Andrew Garfield, who delivers probably one of the most underrated performances that I've seen from him. And although I like Chris Pine as an actor, this film does not reflect any of his talents, and it ultimately falls short completely. And coming at number 7, I have Peter 5'8". Kevin Spacey's comeback film is utterly horrifying to watch. Peter 5'8" is a fake-ass narrative centered on a mysterious character who is tasked to unravel a mystery around a mountain community. Peter arrives unexpectedly in the region as he investigates a case involving a real estate agent. Brenda struggles with alcoholism and is unable to resist her drinking urges. Together, Peter and Brenda confront the looming despair that surrounds the town. So, why did I watch this film? I was very curious to see how Kevin Spacey is doing after the sexual misconduct allegations. The guy narrowly avoided the intense criticisms of him being, gay, which is no surprise. So much so that he made a lot of creepy-ass videos around Christmas and New Year's Eve time with his Francis Underwood voice. And yeah, he's no stranger to keeping up himself as a character in the public sphere. Peter 58 painfully treads hard on Spacey's persona as he plays a Columbo-type character. Basically, he thinks he's Columbo in the streets, but he's just a pedophile in the streets. This film is low budget to its core with its poor acting, shite camera framing, and silly dialogue to back everything up. And it doesn't help that Spacey's tarnished image reflects on the character that he's playing. Spacey's character comes off as an unsettling and predatory person. The tension is very palpable as other actors struggle to deflect his unwanted advances. This basically results in a very cringe-worthy moment near the end of the film that turns into a very unintentionally hilarious ride. While it's easy to point fingers at the financiers behind this film, I choose not to. This situation clearly illustrates why Spacey should have just stepped out of Hollywood even though the allegations were looming above his head. He basically deserves to be canceled for this horrible mess of a film, and he should have been in the closet and should have stayed there. And this gave me horror flashbacks of the other movie he did a couple years ago before, the allegations started, 9 Lives. Don't need to talk about that film. Yeah. And coming at number 6, I have Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. Pretty much Zack Snyder has hacked his way into the Netflix algorithm chain by making the most generic derivative sci-fi film known to man. Each new revelation is forcefully played out like a poor imitation of Seven Samurai. Now, granted, Zack Snyder diehards would never watch Seven Samurai because they don't have the time to watch a 3-hour Japanese masterpiece. Even with subtitles and in a different language, it would definitely scare the hoes, the Snyder cult. They're too busy whining about how Rebel Moon Part 1 and Part 2 will be saved with the director's cut, and by the way, it'll never solve the problems of the theatrical cut anyways. It'll add more excess and more lazy plot devices, and the film basically plays out with exposition dumps that are quite nonsensical. The whole time I was just thinking about the text meme that goes like this: I ain't reading all that, I'm happy for you, sorry that happened. Like, it's easy to understand what is going on in this film, but I was not happy with the final outcome around this time. I'm sorry that some of the characters didn't get what they wanted, but really, I don't really give a fuck about the main characters or Zack Snyder's shtick anymore. I mean, obviously, there's nothing about this world nor how the main characters operate in the Snyder world that I really care about. If you're a diehard Snyder fan, you'll be happy with the final product. However, I beg you to please hear the other side out. We do need more original sci-fi films, that's just a statement, but we need them to be sensical and well fleshed out. And Rebel Moon is just an empty space of just nothing. Zack Snyder is just so fucking washed right now. He should just escape from the Netflix algorithm and just go back to the theatrical landscape. This does not do numbers for him. So we're finally at the top 5 worst films of 2024, and I gotta start out with one of the worst horror films that I saw this year, and one horror film that shouldn't have been made and should have never existed, and I don't understand why it's going to be split into several chapters, and that is, of course, The Strangers Chapter 1. Now, listen here, boys and girls. The Strangers Chapter 1 is quite frankly one of the most nonsensical horror films that I've seen in quite a while. That seems to be kind of like the motive of this video, is nonsensical films that just exist out of thin air and don't need to be in existence. Lionsgate has decided to let the bag loose again with this very low effort approach of a quote-unquote trilogy. And this time around, we have to suffer through several CW-level ass scenarios and poor communication skills. And the two main leads in this are performing in such a way that also teeters a little bit of camp and trash, but also it's very campy and unintentionally campy. And again, I don't really blame the studio heads for at least trying to reignite this franchise, even though the first film is kind of mid, in my opinion, but that's just me. The studio, of course, has decided to make this a trilogy, and I don't understand it. Even watching the first part, I was just like, why are we stretching this out, 3 parts, and where it ends is just very undeserving and unearned in its nature, and the cliffhanger moment near the end is just literally straight out of a CW television show. R.I.P. Rennie Harlan. He's not dead, but his career's dead, and this is the same guy who did Die Hard 2, so yeah, he deserves to get his ass beat for this. So coming at number 4 is a film that I shouldn't be talking about, but I mentioned this in my dishonorable mentions video that I won't be going political with my choices, but you know what? Fuck it. Like, let's ball. We're going to be talking about Reagan 2024. By this point, it is likely that you are aware of my strong disdain of Ronald Reagan as a political figure, as his policies have significantly harmed the lives of numerous minorities in America. Basically, Reagan is a film brain-rotted for geriatric boomers. The film is characterized by a series of slideshow montages and over-the-top scenes from Ronald Reagan's life. Dennis Quaid's portrayal of Reagan borders between parody and parody. However, the film's humor is deeply enhanced by Jon Voight's performance in this as Victor, who basically is a character unfamiliar to Reagan's life, and he basically recounts the most notable events of Reagan's career, political and acting career. Upon flashbacks to Victor's youth, Voight appears to be de-aged and displays a sense of confusion throughout this film as he's quote-unquote acting in the film, and this kind of reminded me of his role in Megalopolis also as well. As a whole, Reagan plays out like a TikTok reel with mid-sentence conversations that usually end with Reagan destroying someone's life with facts and logic. It doesn't help that this film is plagued with misinformation and cushions basically Reagan's actual values, and despite being a family man, Reagan played a significant role in facilitating the war on drugs and failed to take action to address the AIDS crisis, which resulted in over 80,000 to 80,000 deaths. Additionally, there is a brief montage that highlights Reagan's negative response to these issues, and it just goes in and out quickly without any clarification. It just happens, and it doesn't go too deep into those issues. And this montage is also kind of like a blurb and even has like these weird PS2 graphics being played in the background. And by the way, this film ends in a really hilarious ending needle drop with Sweet Child of Mine, and it basically gave me a little bit of like a Hallmark Channel feel. This basically does feel like a Hallmark Channel adjacent biopic that no one asked for, and not even the boomers that were watching this film enjoyed this film. They actually fell asleep. I remember this, and Dennis Quaid is unfortunately unbased for this lame-ass film. I saw The Substance a couple months ago, and his performance in that film is vastly better than the performance that he's trying to do here. And he should definitely, talk to his son about his career, because he's not doing the best, and I hope he just escapes from this Republican boomer bait. But, I think his son will give him his advice, and he probably won't take it, because he's so fucking washed. And coming at number 3, I have Not Another Church Movie. Now listen here, guys. I really wanted to check this film out of curiosity, because I'm really kind of like intrigued by these black films that kind of feel like a Tubi original film. You kind of seen these types of videos pop up on your Twitter feed, and you're going like, what the fuck is this? Like, why, are these like low budget black artists making films that feel very unintentionally funny? And, I gotta respect the hustle and like the grind. I know a lot of these artists personally are trying to like make films for themselves and for the people around their community, and I respect it. I really do. But this film, Not Another Church Film or Movie, is one of these films that you would find on Tubi, and it's an unofficial original Tubi film, in that aesthetic. And at the same time, you also have to kind of respect the game that is being played here. And Jamie Foxx as an actor and his career right now is at a point where he's just, phoning it in. But like at the same time, he had a really bad year with a lot of medical scares and just weird shit that happened to him. I feel bad for him, but at the same time, like, I don't, because he's in this movie and he's just like having the blast of a lifetime, and I respect it. And you see just a lot of these black YouTube comedians showing up here and there doing their shtick, and it just doesn't work out, and it's just terrible, and it's annoying and grating. And I just expected, Orlando Brown to appear and do his little bop routine in this film.
And then I gave her some
But he doesn't appear here, which is sad. I would have liked him to be in this movie. But yeah, this film basically is kind of like the films that you watch at like your local black barbershop, which basically kind of has like, the cracked Amazon Fire Stick, that type of energy. But yeah, this was just very annoying, stupid, hilarious. Not really hilarious. I don't know what I'm doing with this type of blurb, but yeah, this was kind of like annoying. 2, 1. So these last two films are films that I truly hated and will be going super in depth because these two films are one of the worst films of the year and should be avoided at all costs. Starting from number 2, I have Lola. Usually I try to stay away from any preconceived negativity towards an alleged awful film, but with my own eyes, I can confirm that this was some bullshit. Let's start from the beginning. Nicola Peltz Beckham is an actress who has done some minor roles here and there. Most notably, you remember her as Katara in The Last Airbender live-action film. There's no such thing as The Last Airbender in Ba Sing Se. I came across an article by The Guardian reviewing this film. You can check it out for yourself, but in summary, the articles basically highlights Nicola's attempt of directing a film about poverty. Nicola herself is related to the billionaire oligarch Nelson Peltz. Her father is part of the Disney board and has said some insensitive comments about how Disney runs their company. Now, here's the thing. I don't want to get super deep into his comments. I think it's irresponsible and full of hatred towards another minority and other minorities. But to put this in context and into 2 and 2, Nicola has used her father's influence to direct a lame, oblique, and sometimes hilarious coming-of-age film. And Elon Musk, out of all people, showed up to the premiere to promote his scheme to acquire every single company known to man. Jokingly, and not really, but really. This again sets the tone for the filmmaking at hand. Nicola is basically using her clout to paint a story about triumph and adversity, but it all comes down to being emotionally inept and basically a Nepo baby film. Nicola cosplays as Lola, a sex worker who has a virgin boyfriend and doesn't have any agency outside of taking care of her 9-year-old brother. Lola runs into trouble as she's broke as hell. She tries to get a normal job. However, this doesn't work out because of her trust issues. You know how these types of films and stories go. I'll give Nicola the benefit of the doubt here. I think she has some pockets of creativity in some scenes, but her stance on gender fluidity is pretty normal and on a surface level, as Arlo, her younger brother, is having issues with her, them, they, their gender identity. Nicola doesn't let go of herself with this issue and gives Arlo a chance to have their moment in the sun. As for the rest of the film, it feels very disjointed with its themes of abuse, sexual freedom, and poverty. What is strikingly so off about this film is Nicola's choice to redeem the character by using religious purity as the main theme. I won't spoil it here, but something bad happens to Lola and she has to make a choice. And that choice is partially to save the structures of capitalism. At face value, Nicola is giving the middle finger and telling her audience that she doesn't care about the subject at hand. She was working, and she is working in the landscape of being rich and thinks that capitalism is working and is totally fine. Nicola is poverty cosplaying for clout. She doesn't understand how the world works because she is trapped in the rich mindset. Cognitive dissonance at its finest. Hence why this film fundamentally doesn't work as a film, as a whole, in general. And her husband, Brooklyn Beckham, can go kick rocks because he doesn't know how to photograph an elephant. This shows the full sides of nepotism. I'm just losing my fucking mind. And the number one worst film that I saw this year in our Lord and Savior of 2024 is Unfrosted. Unfrosted is an SNL skit that has gone way too far, way too long, and goes horribly wrong. I would love to get into Jerry Seinfeld's Fall from Grace, but I think that would be an easy shot to shoot. It again deals with a comedian who thinks he's getting canceled for the comedy he makes, but really, when you really think about it, it's more due to the fact that his comedic style is outdated. Unfrosted is a hosh-posh of satire, skits, and improv, and they don't hit completely. It's not funny. It's not clever. It's uncohesive. It's a complete mess. It has 4 writers on here, and it's truly insulting. Melissa McCarthy is very innocent in this film, while Amy Schumer just gives me multiple jump scares. Like, I don't really have anything substantial to say about this film. I don't have anything going super deep into it. It's just one of those films you watch and it's a second screen film. And what I mean a second screen film, it's just like an in the background type of movie. And it shouldn't be like that, because comedies are supposed to be very immersive and supposed to give you a lot of like rapid fire, jokes and gags. But here they all fall flat completely. And I blame Jerry Steinfeld for at least trying to make a movie that feels like an early 2000s film, but is completely stuck in the early 2000s and doesn't work in 2024. So yeah, this was one of the worst films that I've seen this year and deserves the bottom spot. Oh man, I hope you guys enjoyed my suffering. That's basically my worst films of 2024. Yeah, I will be talking about my best films of 2024 pretty soon. It'll take a little bit because I need to restructure my list, but keep an eye on that. Check out my other videos, my underrated films of 2024, and also my dishonorable mentions of 2024. And, keep up with the channel, subscribe, like, do whatever you can to, get the word going. I hope you guys enjoy your day, night, evening. Take care. Peace out.
What do you think of this boner I got?